Hey guys, Brock Shinin here, and it is the Cognipop podcast. I'm doing a video on this one, and I'll probably put it on YouTube and some of my other platforms, but also I'll have the audio up on the normal podcast. I am speaking during part of the lockdown of COVID-19, and I want to speak directly to what's happening surrounding this time when we're on lockdown. A lot of businesses are struggling right now. A lot of entrepreneurs are struggling. People are feeling a sense of hopelessness. People are feeling a sense of just a lack of direction. Where do we go from here? How can we get out of this? How do we survive? You know, the stimulus package. I know even within days, there were people who are like, I've applied. Who knows if I'll get this? Or people that are confused about the process. My guess is that many people will not even get any money. Just because of the difficulties of navigating it, uncertainty around all that. So I want to just hit relatively quickly. I know in some ways, we're at home and the common thinking is that we have all the time in the world, but the reality is, we don't. We're all pressed with different issues, whether it's kids at home or we're working from home or whatever it is. I know that a lot of people still have a lot on their plate, and in some ways a lot more on their plate than they did, even from a month or two ago. So I want to try and be quick about this. Speaking directly to business strategy right now, I think the biggest thing that I could speak into this moment on a very practical level is that it's time to pivot. It's time to be thinking, what are the needs that are not being met, and what are the needs that are overextended, and finding ways to meet these. And I talked about a couple of these recently in a YouTube video. I just did a quick informal training, talked about, but for a little bit of a longer format, I want to get into the meat of what this really looks like, but why it's so important. Right now, what we're seeing is that businesses are, literally during the first week of lockdown, I was getting calls from businesses that were like, we'll truly shut our doors forever. We'll be bankrupt within a week. When you think about that as an entrepreneur, if you're bankrupt within a week, it's highly likely that you're overextended in the first place, that you weren't making prudent steps fiscally or otherwise. I know sometimes, with different types of businesses, we have to be so far extended on credit or on our expenses. Maybe sometimes it's just buying inventory that we're so far extended that one hiccup can literally put us out of business. And with any business model, don't get me wrong, you can have a very successful business and be constantly overextended, but still be very successful. But I think part of the goal, as business owners, as executives, as entrepreneurs, and certainly sort of on the smaller scale, we want to have the economic ability to survive and weather storms like this. When we're talking big business, we want to be able to weather the storm, but it looks different, right? When you're a solo entrepreneur, or it's a small company, closely held, something like that, versus one that has tens of thousands of employees all over the world, the dynamics are very different in how you plan for that. But in either circumstance, we want to be able to weather storms. And if we go out of business within a week of a hiccup like this, and this is a major hiccup, being told you can't work or you have to work from home, work remotely, that's a pretty significant impact on every single business. However, if we weren't able to get through a week without us truly risking closing the doors, there was a problem to begin with. So part of what we could be doing right now is a reflection, sort of a self-reflection on where your business is, and where, if we want to be successful in the future, a year from now, 5 years from now, after we do get through this time period, and we will, you need to be thinking about why it took a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to be on the verge of shutting your door. And sometimes it's just not having enough reserve cash. Sometimes it's literally that simple. We did not have the ability or did not do a good job of reserving cash to get us through hard times. We didn't expect it. The economy was booming. Everything was great. We just figured it would continue to. But like all of aspects of life, sometimes surprises do happen. This was a major surprise in many different ways. And so we weren't prepared for it fiscally if we weren't able to weather a week or 2 or 3 weeks. Now, it's different. At some point, everybody gets hit. The longer this drags out, it's not just a global, like this affects the economy in a really broad, amorphous sense, but on a very real level, Some people can last a day, some a week, some a month, some a year, some a few years, but at some point with no income coming in, every single business becomes dramatically affected. Now, part of what we want to do is we want to look at, are there opportunities that we can take advantage of with this shift? I mentioned some in the mini training I did the other day, but I want to go a little bit more into detail because I think this is important. So I read recently about AMC Theaters, and I talked about this one, but I want to break this down a little bit more. AMC Theaters' entire business model is people showing up in a physical location, not just to watch a movie, but to buy popcorn and candy and sodas and whatever else. When people cannot go in the building, that entire business model, right? The popcorn, the movie, all of it crashes. There's zero possibility to make money, we assume. But imagine if AMC being, and this is just an example because of reading the articles about AMC, but if AMC was able to quickly negotiate with the content owners, the distribution companies, where they're getting rights or where they're capable of getting rights, it was possible, and it still is possible, that they can pivot into home theater, basically streaming. Now, what does that mean? Well, now they're competing with Netflix, they're competing with Amazon. I get all that, and I'm not saying that this is sustainable. I'm not saying it's a long-term answer, but think about this. Netflix pivoted. I mean, this is an interesting counterpoint. Netflix pivoted with watch parties. I don't even know. Maybe watch parties already existed. I don't think they did, but I have heard people talking about these watch parties. Now, everybody I've heard that's tried it has said it's stupid. You're basically watching a movie, and then there's like a Zoom meeting happening simultaneously, so it's kind of dumb. And it's disruptive. But conceptually, the idea of pivoting into, we're all at home. If we're all watching a movie, can we do it at the same time? AMC could have done that. AMC can still do that. But I think where AMC can do it better than maybe even Netflix or Amazon or the other services, even HBO and television in general, is can we incorporate some of the popcorn, candy, soda experience into it? Maybe not. Maybe there are packages that can be sent out. Hey, we could stream your movie, or maybe AMC can negotiate rights like Redbox and get physical DVDs out the door. I'm still, when I go to the grocery store, I will still see people. I think every time I've been in the grocery store, I've seen somebody at the Redbox thing, renting a DVD. So there's opportunity, and that's the point. Is it too much, too fast, too big for AMC to handle? Maybe, but there are other businesses just like that. Let's talk about restaurants for an example. People aren't going inside of a restaurant to eat. They're not sitting out on the patio of a restaurant to eat. Some restaurants have said, hey, we can't, basically we're going out of business. Same thing as AMC. We just don't have people showing up, so it's impossible. There are restaurants that are saying, you know what, we recognize that people aren't getting what they need at the grocery store, so we're actually going to be a secondary grocery store. If you're fighting over Vaughn's and Ralph's and Stater Brothers, why don't you place your order online with us, our restaurant, eggs, bread, fruit, whatever it is, and we will get it, we'll package it up, we'll put it in a box for you, pay over the phone, and we'll have it, sitting out in your space when you show up at the front door to pick it up. So restaurants are pivoting. Another thing I'm seeing is chefs are starting to disclose recipes, and actually some restaurants are having chefs which will, and those chefs will actually create a meal that they normally would never share the recipe to, and they'll film it, and they will show you the video. So they're training you how to cook at home. Disney just yesterday, I think, or a couple of days ago, announced, hey, here's our recipe for churros. You want to make your own churros at home? This is the Disney recipe. Whether it's true or not is not the point. Whether it's the actual recipe, is not the point. It's to say that every business that wants to survive and wants to continue to be in business is going to have to make pivots, because pretty much this affects everybody in every industry in one way or another. So businesses must be pivoting. There's plenty and plenty of examples and ideas out there. But if you're a business owner, you're an executive, you're a management, you're an entrepreneur, you have to be thinking, how can I pivot right now? Now, obviously, the instant pivot that everybody made was, we're not in person, so we're going to go online. We're going to go on video. Now, I wrote couple of weeks ago about how personally I think video conferencing and that whole thing is actually going to wind up being a long-term disaster. And the reason why I believe that is because we had an entire society, really the world, but I'm talking about American culture right now, an entire society shift from in-person, education, work, all that kind of stuff to working at home. So let's get in front of a camera. Not everyone has internet access. Not everyone has great internet speeds. There are technical difficulties. There's people still trying to figure out the mute button and how do I turn my camera on and off, and what if, and there's these spam Zoom bomb parties. There's Instagram accounts being set up saying, hey, you want us to bomb your Zoom classroom? Give us the meeting ID and we'll do that for you. And they're dropping in, pornographic stuff and disruptive stuff into the classes that are happening on Zoom. So what you're seeing while people are adapting to video technology is you're also seeing people disrupt that on purpose, but that's just on top of the technical difficulties of not everybody has great equipment and great internet speeds. So now you're seeing also a disparity in who has access to internet, who has access to computers and laptops and iPads and all that, and people who don't. And there's a disparity there. So I think part of it is, I think that we need to not just make this transformation. I write a lot and speak a lot about digital transformation. Digital transformation, and I've been saying this from day one, is not about a shift in technology use. I know there are a lot of organizations that are in this moment saying, well, we were forced to digitally transform because now it's all online. That is not digital transformation. And this isn't the time or the forum to get into what is and what's not. I've written a lot about it. You can go to my website and read more. You can watch videos more. I talk specifically about what digital transformation is and is not. But for this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about simply shifting from in-person to video or audio conferencing is not a transformation in and of itself, and certainly not always effective. Some of the kids in classrooms they've lost their marbles on all this stuff. They don't even know how to engage anymore because it's so complicated. And of course, they've brought the parents into it. So parents aren't able to get their work done because they're helping the kids be on a computer. And the parents don't even know how to navigate this stuff. They're figuring it out. So what can businesses do on this regard with technology? Be cautious of how quickly you implement particularly video conferencing, simply because that seems to be the soup du jour, the tool everybody's using. I mean, I have clients that all of a sudden, like, every communication now has to be a Zoom meeting. And I'm like, do you realize how much time we're wasting? We would have been on the phone for 2 minutes and now we're on a Zoom call for 30 because it just doesn't feel right to get on a Zoom and say, hey, here's the answer, bye. So don't use video if you don't need video. Use the tool for the right purpose and the right time. So if you're in business, be thinking about making these pivots using technology. Use the right technology for the right circumstances. The other thing I want to talk to you about is the mindset. There is so much politicizing. I mean, we've seen it, and I'm certainly not trying to get into the politics of any of it. What party, what president, what senator, none of that. What I am saying is that the topic of health has become so politicized, people are just fully giving up hope because they feel like it doesn't matter where I turn. We're all going to die, or this is going to happen, or this person's at fault. Wherever we look, there's this horrible, basically an end of the world scenario. What I want to tell you is we're not all going to die. Some of us, unfortunately, will, because this is a real virus. But for the rest of us, even if we get this virus, we're going to survive and we're going to live. And we're going to have to deal with the aftermath of everything we're going through. Currently, we're going to have to deal with that as we take steps into the future. So I want to give you an encouragement, a word of hope that number one, you are going to make it through this. Number two, your business, if you run a business, if you manage it, if you're an executive, if you're an owner, entrepreneur, it can survive if you make the right choices. But so much of this is mindset. So much of this is how you perceive you and your business getting through this. So I want to encourage you, you can, but you have to believe it. I want you to take practical steps. I want you to wake up each day. I want you to be thinking about what are practical steps I can implement today that will move me closer to ensuring that I'm still in business a year from now. 5 years from now? Because if you're not, and you're just like, it's too overwhelming, there's too much information, it's too confusing, the politics are too heavy, the doomsday prophecy is too large, all of that kind of stuff. As soon as that seeps into you, it seeps into your brain, and you stop being logical, you stop being rational. And in another episode, another topic, I want to talk about how one of the things I've seen is that we've either completely lost our ability to think rationally and to challenge what we're being fed, regardless of your politics, regardless of your education. We're just blindly accepting everything we're being told right now, which is leading partly to the confusion we have. But I also want to speak to the fact that you have to think logically. There are ways to preserve your expenses, preserve your financial resources, to preserve your ability to stay in business, to still put food on the table at home, to still have a job, to still have an office, to still have your business that you've built. But it requires planning. And if we're not planning, even as we're going through this, we're more likely to fail. And if we're not adjusting our plans, even as we're going through this, we're more likely to fail. So I don't want to make this too long. I wanted to get to the point of some pivots you could be making and some logic, but I also wanted to speak hope into this situation, because by and large, what I see is a lot of hopelessness, a lot of doom, and there is hope. It is how you perceive the world around you. It is how you perceive your future. So take the steps towards a bright future. You can do it. All right, I'm here. If you need anything, reach out. You know how to reach me, brockscheinen.com, the different social media platforms. I'm here to help us all, as many people as I can help, as many people as I can reach. I'm here to help us get through this hard point. So keep pushing. All right, there you have it. Bye.